In the year 2020, portals linked to another dimension. Gates began to appear, and something extraordinary began to happen in the peaceful world. Many nations' governments sent their armies to these gates to learn more about them, but not a single person returned. And monsters began pouring out of these neglected gates. With overwhelming strength that crushed all modern weaponry, the monsters began to slaughter humans indiscriminately. But supporters who were bestowed strength and skills by transcendent beings began to appear. With the hunters at the forefront, humanity began its counterattack. Supporters were able to grant active hunters additional strength. Out of those countless hunters, one with countless kin and immortal soldiers and domination over the fire, called the Demon King, appeared. With the special qualities of a player, he alone was able to grow by hunting. However, through the influence of the 12 greatest heroes that were looked upon as gods, they feared this man and his power and erased him from history. They, who were called gods, created Eden. Hunters were then considered a new human subspecies, and those who couldn't become hunters were reduced to slaves. Hunters dominated the world. After 100 years had passed, a boy is sprinting in the woods of a small town and stops in between after he gets tired. The bald man sitting on the tree's branch questions the boy if he was done, to which the boy replies that this is his limit and he can't do anymore. The bald man reminds the boy that if he wants to change the world and become a hunter, he should change his mindset. To catch the eyes of the supporters, he's got to overcome his limits. The boy addresses the bald man as Sung-gu Hyung and asks him if he too overcame his limits when he got his first supporter. But Sung-gu got their support directly, which the boy found to be unfair. Sung-gu suggests the boy do something else since he can't run and takes out a light spear from his inventory. The boy is amazed by it, but Sung-gu tells him there's nothing to be amazed about as he'll realize it once he becomes a hunter too. Hearing that, the boy remembers how after he learned that his parents were killed by hunters, he received a book as a memento from Sung-gu. In it was all the absurdities that hunters had committed. The boy wanted to change that, so Sung-gu helped him through all these years, but when he looks at how things have turned out, he thinks he'll never be a hunter. Sung-gu tells him to not worry and guarantees that the boy will be a hunter. Sung-gu then asks the boy if he still has the book. The boy still has it, as it was a memento from his parents, and also confirms with Sung-gu that the book is an autobiography of the forgotten hero who was erased by the 12 heroes. The boy gets a little emotional and wonders that if the forgotten hero was alive, the world could have been a better place. Suddenly, a woman ambushes them with magic. To protect the boy, Sung-gu pushes him away and gets hit by the magic instead. The boy is not sure about who the woman is and suddenly gets controlled by the magic, making him bow to the woman. The boy is confused about how he is not able to move when out of nowhere, a few men with the woman gather and greet her as Lady Athena, the ruler of Eden. That is when the boy realizes that Athena is one of the 12 gods that founded Eden and wonders as to what she was doing there. While the boy is held down due to Athena's power, she orders her men to go find Sung-gu, who dodged Athena's attack. Meanwhile, Athena wonders who the boy is as she can't feel any magic power from him. But the boy is afraid of Athena finding the book he has, which is the autobiography of the Demon King, which contains the dirty linens that the 12 gods want to hide. Athena turns to leave thinking he is just a lowly slave and lifts the magic from the boy. The boy thinks he is saved, but as he lifts his head, he sees Athena standing in front of him. Athena had almost lost it, but she felt magic power coming from the boy, although there are only a few traces of it. The boy's heart is racing and his breaths are getting shorter. Seeing as how he froze up, Athena guesses that he has something that he can't let her get her hands on. Athena uses her magic power and orders the boy to take out what he has and tell her what it is. The boy's body is moving on its own. He tries to stop moving, as he doesn't want Athena to get a hold of the book, but his body doesn't listen to him, and eventually he takes out the book, trembling. The boy is worried that if Athena gets a hold of this book, everyone who's related to him will die. And if things go wrong, the whole neighborhood might be obliterated. Because that's how Eden works. They get rid of everything that rubs them in the wrong way or stands in their way. The boy can't let the book get into the hands of Athena and cries out a plea. And just when Athena is about to touch the book, she gets blocked by a shield protecting it. She realizes that the book is the autobiography of the Demon King she has been looking for. She doesn't know how a mere slave was able to get his hands on the book, but she decides that she will be taking it. Suddenly, Sung-gu arrives and stops her. While she is blown away by Sung-gu's attack, the boy is relieved to see him but is curious about Sung-gu's identity. He tries to ask Sung-gu about it, but Sung-gu apologizes as he doesn't have time to explain and hands the book to the boy. He holds up a sword and asks the boy that if he has the power to change the world, a power that can rival the 12 gods, then would he still feel the same about wanting to change the world? Suddenly, Athena yells out to Sung-gu as Heimdall. Sung-gu reminds the boy to make his decision, as they don't have time and he can't fend off Athena by himself. The boy agrees and Sung-gu right away stabs him with the sword and tells the boy to be nice to him if he meets him there. Soon the boy vanishes and gets transferred to a cave-like place after he hears a voice talking about him being supported by the fall of heaven. The boy notices significant changes in his body which assures him that he has become a hunter. He looks around to see that he is in a dungeon and feels magic power flowing within him. As the boy is wondering if he might be inside a gate, he suddenly hears footsteps and hides behind a rock to see a goblin, which further confirms his suspicions that he is inside a gate dungeon. The boy knows that goblins are the lowest ranked monsters, but they are much more dangerous than one can think of, and that's why they are also called the beginner hunter-killer, because of the goblin's exceptional sense of smell and hearing, together with its reckless style of hunting. For beginners that have just started without any information, a lot of them would die. As he hopes for the goblin to leave without spotting him, the goblin finds him and starts walking in the direction where the boy is hiding. He picks up a stone and wonders if what he has learned would work on the goblin. He can only trust in the skills that he has been learning to become a hunter and throws the stone in the opposite direction to distract the goblin. As the goblin turns its head towards where the stone was, the boy grabs its hand and slices its head with his hand. The boy is shocked about his strength. He was only intending to scare the goblin and steal its weapon initially. Suddenly, he hears a voice that says the fall of heaven is paying attention to you. The boy realizes the fall of heaven is something related to the Demon King. Out of nowhere, a herd of goblins, along with the goblin boss in the back, starts charging toward the boy. Just when the boy is about to lose hope of him winning, he remembers Sung-gu's words and his promise to Sung-gu. The boy cheers up and tells himself that he can't die before he changes the world, and charges at the herd with the sword. One by one he kills all the goblins, although in the process he gets hurt. Now all that is left is the goblin boss. Even though it's a goblin, it's still a boss monster, and that is why the sword attack didn't work on the goblin boss. One needs to be at least a C-rank hunter to be able to hunt the goblin boss. The boy is skeptical if someone like him who just awakened would be able to kill the goblin boss. The boy puts his faith in a light spear, which makes the fall of heaven cheer him for his choice and grants him the rule of fire's authority. The spear is the Demon King's weapon and also the weapon the boy is most confident in. He also has the authority to top it off. He puts all the power in the spear, charges at the goblin boss, and kills it, increasing his level once again. But he soon falls to the ground due to his injury. Soon after, a group of people enters the dungeon to see all the goblins and their boss killed. Upon inspection, they discover the boy's body and take him as a survivor. The boy wakes up to see himself in a hospital and confirms that whatever happened until now wasn't a dream. Athena appeared and almost stole the Demon King's autobiography, and after being stabbed by Sung-gu, he woke up inside a gate dungeon. He almost died thanks to the goblin boss he ran into, but was able to survive, thanks to the dominion over the fire that the fall of heaven granted him. But after that, he collapsed after sustaining injuries. It seemed to him that the hunters that came to combat the gate saved him. Just then, a nurse enters and tells him to not move. She checks up on him to see if he feels ill or dizzy and informs him that the hunters dispatched from the League Guild found him and brought him to the hospital. And since he was found injured inside the gate, someone from the association will be coming by. Before the nurse leaves, the boy asks her about what year it is. The boy is shocked to hear that it was the year 2022. That was over 100 years before he was born. 2022 was the year when the special hunters began to make a name for themselves, appointing themselves as gods, and ruling over their fellow man, and powerless humans like the boy were forced to live like refugees, hiding and waiting for their deaths. Unlike how one had to be chosen by Eden to become a hunter, this era is one where hunters awaken by being sponsored by sponsors. The boy suddenly removes his IV drips needle and gets up. The nurse tries to stop him, but he is completely fine and goes to the bathroom. As he looks in the mirror, he finds himself with a new build and height. Although his face does look pretty similar, his build and appearance are like a completely different person. Soon after, he meets with Kim Soo-young from the association, who inquires about the boy's memories, as he had heard from the nurse that the boy doesn't remember anything. After not being able to find any information on the boy, Kim Soo-young is told that the boy is 23 years old and his name is Lee Jun-jeong. For some reason, Lee Jun-jeong mixed up his name with the Demon King's name. Besides that, Lee Jun-jeong tells Kim Soo-young that he couldn't remember anything else. Further on, Kim Soo-young asks him if he had felt anything while in the dungeon. to which Lee Jun-jeong tells him that he heard a voice saying that it will sponsor him. After some talks, Kim Soo-young bids goodbye, saying he is absolutely important to their world. Later, Lee Jun-jeong checks his status window. The 12 heroes kept the Demon King in check because the Demon King was special. To be precise, he wasn't a hunter but a player. Unlike hunters, who required the sponsorship of sponsors to grow stronger, he was able to grow stronger on his own. He was the sole person able to grow stronger by hunting. And now, just like the Demon King, Lee Jun-jeong has also become a player. The nurse congratulates Lee Jun-jeong on becoming a hunter, and he asks her if it is something to be congratulated for. The nurse confirms it as it is equal to winning a lottery. Even F-ranked hunters can attain wealth that normal people can't even imagine. Other than fighting monsters within the gate, there are a lot of other things a hunter can do. A hunter can become a blacksmith by using magic power to make magical items or work as a bodyguard. That earns tremendous figures. Lee Jun-jeong knows that, and thanks to that, those who aren't chosen are powerless, which makes him fake a smile toward the nurse. The nurse then hands him a bag of clothes belonging to Lee Jun-jeong, which she received from Kim Soo-young, and bids him goodbye after congratulating him on his discharge. Lee Jun-jeong is looking around the streets of Gangnam and reminisces about the time he wasn't allowed to even step into this place. As he is admiring the streets of Gangnam, Kim Soo-young appears and tells him to head to the association with him, as it is not good for a new hunter like him to be outside. Kim Soo-young assures him that once he's registered as a hunter, he will be given an apartment and congratulates him because his test results declared him as a C-rank hunter. Later, Lee Jun-jeong goes with Kim Soo-young to the Hunters Association for registration. After completing the registration, they arrive at the apartment Lee Jun-jeong will be living in. Lee Jun-jeong is very happy to have his own house for the first time in his life. While he is still emotional about everything, Kim Soo-young tells him that the League guild leader who saved him would like to have an audience. Lee Jun-jeong curiously agrees to meet and gets taken aback after seeing the League guild leader. It was none other than Heimdall, aka Yo Seong-gu. He thanks Yo Seong-gu for saving his life, which makes Seong-gu admire him more. Later in the night, Lee Jun-jeong checks his body again, which is totally different but has the same mole spots. He wonders why he has the Demon King's ability, which he received from the sponsorship of the Fall of Heaven. As he can't find the answers, he decides to just accept the situation, as he has earned the strength which everyone desires. The next day, Lee Jun-jeong attends the class for hunters in the Hunters Association, where B-rank hunter B Sang-soo, one of the key members of the association, is in charge of the tutorials for the day. The students immediately got in form as they realized that for a key member to be their tutor for the day meant that someone had caught the association's eye. Lee Sang-soo informs the class that after the seminar for hunters, there will be a combat test where the hunters can choose their weapons, and proceeds to quiz the class on whatever they know about being a hunter. Lastly, he asks if anyone knows the objective of a sponsor. As he had expected, no one could answer. Every hunter is curious about it, but no one knows who the sponsors are and why they choose humans to become hunters. While everyone was trying to get B Sang-soo's attention, he noticed only Lee Jun-jeong was unbothered and asks him to answer his last question. B Sang-soo assures him that since there is no answer he shouldn't worry as he just wants to hear Lee Jun-jeong's thoughts. Everyone is left speechless when Lee Jun-jeong says that the sponsors do this for entertainment. It's like a game where you choose a character, have them hunt monsters, and as such the sponsors are entertained as the hunters get stronger. The Demon King hypothesized that the sponsors think of this world as a game, and because of that hypothesis, he still died after obtaining such power. Lee Jun-jeong believes this to be the sponsor's most important secret. Later, B Sang-soo tests everyone on their combat skills. After the girl defeats the goblin and passes the test, Lee Jun-jeong enters as the last contestant. B Sang-soo is intrigued by Lee Jun-jeong's odd combination of weapons which consisted of a spear and a shield. But he still proceeds with the test and warns Lee Jun-jeong that since all the goblins have died, he will have to combat a different monster. Lee Jun-jeong can only attend the graduation course after passing this test, and if he shows good results, he will get many benefits. So, he agrees to fight with a different monster. B Sang-soo reminds Lee Jun-jeong to not disappoint him here after impressing him in class and releases the monster. The monster Lee Jun-jeong will be fighting was an orc. Everyone in the hunters class is watching the combat through a television. They couldn't believe that an orc was being used in their tutorials too. The appearance of orcs was possible due to the hunters that ranked B on their first awakening who are now some of the strongest hunters in the world. Lee Jun-jeong is also a C-rank hunter who by himself killed the goblin boss at the D-rank gate. B Sang-soo couldn't let the association miss out on such an incredible hunter and so prepared the orc, especially for Lee Jun-jeong. The Fall of Heaven is observing Lee Jun-jeong closely as he takes his position for the combat. The orc charges at him and Lee Jun-jeong stabs it with his spear. The spear gets stuck, which gives the orc an advantage to shower punches at him. Lee Jun-jeong blocks the punches with his shield. The situation of having an orc from the start just didn't fit right with others and hoped that the instructor, Bi Sang-soo, could stop the fight. Bi Sang-soo observes for a while and eventually decides to step in. But Lee Jun-jeong had other plans. Lee Jun-jeong avoids the next punch and kicks the orc in its face, breaking its one tooth. He eventually ends the battle by using his magic power of fire and piercing his shield through the orc's head. Everyone is stunned at how he released the spear to knock off the orc's balance and kill it. Bi Sang-soo thought that a newly awakened hunter had just acquired a new skill, but since there wasn't any activation code, he wondered if it was a high-ranking skill. The shield's durability becomes 0 and soon Lee Jun-jeong levels up along with his dominion over fire that reaches level 2. Bi Sang-soo didn't want to lose him and so is more determined to take him to the association. Lee Jun-jeong passes the test and continues to admire the amazing skill of the Dominion of Fire. Dominion over fire is the root of power used by the Demon King, as well as a trait that came with being a hunter. The fire dominance wasn't a mere skill but power. Unlike skills that can't be leveled up, power can be leveled up through a sponsor's help, and the player can level up their power as well. But the equipment won't last due to its sheer force, and so Lee Jun-jeong needs equipment forged from metals to use this skill. After the test, later in the evening, Lee Jun-jeong invites Kim Soo-young and Yo Seong-gu to a housewarming party at his place. While they ate delivery food, there was a brief conversation about the tutorial, the final test on the next day, and the directions they wished to go. And apparently, Soo-young was assigned to be Lee Jun-jeong's supervisor. There is a conversation where Seong-gu asks Jun-jeong if he has considered joining his league guild. While Soo-young is worried about this conversation, Jun-jeong declines the offer as he doesn't want to belong to any organization at the moment, but promises to help whenever needed. Seong-gu accepts Jun-jeong's wishes, but Soo-young is amazed at how a rank hunter like Seong-gu accepted this so easily. The next day, everyone gathered up for the graduation test. Before they begin, Bi Sang-soo explains to them in simple words about the tutorial's graduation process. He tells them that the graduation test will take place in the gate, and there is no need for concern since he will be accompanying them. Everyone is overwhelmed by his magic power. Soon they depart after receiving the supplies. As they enter, Jun-jeong and others feel a stickiness in the air. Sang-soo explains to them that it is because the magic power within the gate is very high. After going a bit further, the goblins appear, and Sang-soo instructs Hunter number 1 and 3 to ready their weapons. As they finish defeating the goblins on their side, Sang-soo then instructs Hunter number 8 and 16 followed by Lee Jun-jeong, who one by one kills all the goblins in his way. Other hunters are stunned by his speed and skills. They wonder why such a skilled guy is even taking the test. On the other hand, Sang-soo realizes that Jun-jeong's skills are as good as a B-rank hunter like him. He hopes for Jun-jeong to join the association as soon as possible. After killing the goblins, they are about to reach the boss of the gate. Before entering the place where the boss resides, Sang-soo reminds the hunters to stay cautious, as the boss is different from the goblins that they've been fighting. He then instructs them to drink their potions and check the conditions of their weapons and defensive gear. Lee Jun-jeong, on the other hand, thinks about how the Demon King was killed by the 12 heroes before he even got to unleash the power of a player. He knows that this wouldn't have happened if the Demon King developed faster than the 12 heroes, and therefore he decides to use everything that he knows to get stronger than Eden's 12 heroes and anyone else. Soon, they depart while following Sang-soo. But as they enter, they feel an overwhelmingly immense power. Sang-soo senses the danger and instructs everyone to retreat and run to the gate. As they are running, Sang-soo notices a big ball of fire charging toward him. He knows that if he dodges it, the young hunters may get injured. And so, he stops in his tracks and uses the skill of the Viper's Fangs to attack the fireball. The power was so destructive that the Viper's Fangs skill couldn't completely cancel it out. Sang-soo checks on the new hunters if they are hurt and sees Jun-jeong, who saved them by defending the attack. Sang-soo praises him and gets praised back by Jun-jeong. Suddenly, the Fall of Heaven requests Jun-jeong to get rid of the Great Goblin Sorcerer. Meanwhile, the new hunters realize that there may be something wrong with the system, as the gate they were in was not a low-ranking gate. They all decide to run away because they think that only Bi Sang-soo can fight the sorcerer. Sang-soo agrees with their decision and tells them to contact the Hunter Association after they leave the gate. Jun Jeong, on the other hand, comes forward and asks Sang-soo to let him fight the goblin sorcerer. Sang-soo warns Jun Jeong to not be overconfident. Although he knows Jun Jeong has defeated many goblins and orcs, he still warns Jun Jeong that great goblin sorcerers shouldn't be taken for granted, as they are based on magical prowess, not physical. They have magical skills that can contest a B-rank hunter. But Jun Jeong assures Sang-soo that he knows it's a strong monster whose main skills are Fire Arrow, Fireball, Fire Wall, and Fire Shield. He knows he can go against it, and since all the monsters in the tutorial are for the new hunters, Jun Jeong requests Sang-soo to give him a chance. Sang-soo is astonished by the ridiculous amount of self-confidence Jun Jeong has and eventually agrees to let him fight. As Jun Jeong steps forward to fight, the sorcerer throws fireballs at him, which he without a scratch absorbs it. Others at first thought that he blocked the attack, but in reality, he absorbed the fireball. Now he proceeds to charge at the sorcerer but gets blocked by Firewall. Everyone is scared that they will one-sidedly get attacked by long-ranged magic. But Jun Jeong again surprises them as he uses his fire control authority to split the firewall. The sorcerer is also dumbfounded and tries to attack again as Jun Jeong approaches it. But Jun Jeong clads his power in the spear and pierces it through the goblin sorcerer multiple times, leaving only small pieces of its body behind. Amazed at how a rookie hunter could easily kill the monster, everyone decides to address Jun Jeong as a super rookie. The Fall of Heaven was awed by his feat, and since the mission was successful, the Fall of Heaven sponsors him and gives Jun Jeong the chance to summon an avatar. Later in the night, Sang-soo meets with the association president to discuss regarding the tutorial, and the C-rank hunter Jun Jeong. The president at first thinks that Jun Jeong's abilities are below the lowest grade, but is surprised to know that his abilities are beyond what he imagines and asks Sang-soo about how far Jun Jeong's potential can reach. Sang-soo claims that the president can accomplish his goal if they have Jun Jeong. The president is intrigued and wants to meet Jun Jeong as soon as possible. The next day, Jun Jeong meets with Seong-gu and Soo-young outside the Hunters Association. Soo-young was worried after knowing that the gate's rank went up from E to C, but his worries soon faded when he saw that Jun Jeong was alright. Further, Seong-gu asks Jun Jeong if received the guild's recruitment offer. Jun Jeong nods his head in confirmation and remembers what happened back in the association. Sang-soo had offered Jun Jeong to join the association, but Jun Jeong rejects the offer as he doesn't want to join any groups at the moment, even though he knows that if he joins the association, he can grow much faster. But he won't be able to hide his secrets, and there is someone at the association who he can't become involved with. He wants to avoid meeting with that man at all costs. Jun Jeong comes back to reality when Seong-gu asks him about his favorite food. Jun Jeong finds this harder than refusing the association's offer because he doesn't know what he likes to eat. Nonetheless, he blurts out the word cup ramen. Seong-gu smirks and asks if he likes meat. Jun Jeong's mouth starts drooling and he starts nodding his head continuously. And so, they leave the place to go eat some meat. At night, while having a shower, Jun Jeong remembers his fight in the dungeon and thinks to himself that he has gotten a lot stronger. He opens his status window, which shows that he is currently at level 11, and it also displays his other skills along with the sponsorship he received from the Fall of Heaven that allows him to summon an avatar. He is aware that no normal hunter can summon an avatar. Even among the 12 heroes, only a few of them could do that. Thanks to the Demon King's ability, he could summon monsters like the Bone Dragon, Balrog, and Kerberos. Since he has been getting the same items and powers as the Demon King so far, Jun Jeong wonders if that will also apply to avatar summoning and summons the avatar. The next day, Jun Jeong is chilling on his couch when Soo-young arrives at his place excitedly and tells him the news. Jun Jeong's combat with the Goblin Sorcerer was featured in the news without any information on who defeated the Goblin Sorcerer. But Jun Jeong was sure that the higher-ups in the association knew that he was the one who defeated the Goblin Sorcerer. Soo-young tells Jun Jeong that he seems to be least interested in the news. Jun Jeong brushes off the topic and asks Soo-young for a favor. He wanted to start raiding the dungeons. After killing the boss and clearing the dungeon, besides increasing a level, there is no response from the avatar. As Jun Jeong wonders about how to use the avatar, the Fall of Heaven opens a window where the avatar's name is displayed as the soul-collecting skeleton. This window tells him that he cannot revitalize these dead monsters because they have no soul. Avatars can use powerful, unique abilities when provided with souls. Jun Jeong thought that it needed a monster's soul, but that was not the case. After he comes out of the dungeon, Soo-young, who is waiting for him, tells him that if he wants to sell his drops or items, he can give them to Soo-young, and Soo-young will transfer the money to Jun Jeong. Jun Jeong had cleared 4 dungeons until now and wanted to go for the next one. So, he asks Soo-young if the next dungeon is booked. Unfortunately, a certain guild that is expanding these days booked over 20 low-rank dungeons at once, leaving no suitable dungeons for Jun Jeong. Soo-young then tells him that normally the association wouldn't accept it, but all the dungeons were already cleared, so they had no other choice. As he hears this, Jun Jeong confirms with Soo-young that the certain guild's master act of the North Army Guild is indeed Choi Yong-sung. He remembers that Choi Yong-sung had become famous for being under the 12 heroes, and if this happens again, Choi Yong-sung may become a merciless murderer and a tyrant just like he was in the past. While walking to the streets, Jun Jeong remembers the incident where Choi Yong-sung had massacred his village for not letting him destroy their homes. After that incident, the population of the village was reduced by half. While deep in his thoughts, Jun Jeong suddenly comes across 2 hunters troubling an elderly man. He confronts them, but they try to brush him off by revealing their powers. Jun Jeong reveals his powers too, which surprises the men. He continues to ask the elderly man about the ruckus, but the man with gray hair interrupts and lies to him that it was because the elderly man grazed him with his cart, and so he is breaking the elderly man's cart as compensation. The elderly man denies his allegations and claims that they were the ones who kicked his cart on purpose and started acting violently. But the gray-haired guy smugly claims that attacking his precious hunter body is worth the violence and threatens Jun Jeong to be careful or he will attack him too. Jun Jeong asks them to leave obediently and tells them that since they've not harmed the elderly man yet, he will turn a blind eye. But one by one both men charge at Jun Jeong to attack him, but he smoothly avoids the attack by subduing them. Later, the association arrives and takes the 2 men away. Soo-young thanks Jun Jeong for doing the association's work and assures him of the elderly man's safety. Jun Jeong recalls that the men had mentioned that they belonged to a guild and inquires about it with Soo-young. Soo-young tells him that they belong to the North Army Guild he had asked about. Jun Jeong realizes that the North Army Guild and the association are somehow helping each other, and highly doubts that these 2 rotten organizations will not cause a ruckus. 2 days later, just as Jun Jeong had expected, he was summoned to the association after being accused as an assailant. A few days later, the grandpa that Lee Jun Jeong saved changed his testimony. The perpetrator became the victim, and Lee Jun Jeong, who helped the grandpa, became the perpetrator. Though Jun Jeong understands grandpa's dilemma, he still felt annoyed. Soo-young tries to assure Jun Jeong that nothing will go wrong as the association isn't that corrupted yet. But Jun Jeong knows that the association has been corrupted since its birth. Soon, Jun Jeong enters the building and gets interrogated in a secluded room. The person interrogating Jun Jeong asks him if it's true he has no memories before being rescued and if he was the one who reported the incident after suppressing the guild members of the North Army Guild. Jun Jeong confirms these questions, but soon the person claims that Jun Jeong intimidated the elderly Lee Moon-soo to falsely testify that the North Army Guild's hunters were the first to attack Jun Jeong. Jun Jeong denies this allegation, but the person brings in the grandpa, who reluctantly testifies against Jun Jeong and leaves the room with tears. The person smugly asks Jun Jeong if there is anything else he has to say, to which Jun Jeong stuns him by handing out video evidence that proves his innocence and leaves the building. The association will know the reason why the testimony was changed, but only the grandpa will face punishment for perjury. In this situation, there is nothing Jun Jeong could do, and gets annoyed as he is aware that he lacks strength. Suddenly, he hears Seong-gu's voice and snaps out of his deep thoughts. Soo-young didn't have anyone backing him in the association, and among the people he knew, only Seong-gu was the one with the most influence. So, he contacted Seong-gu just in case there was a problem. Jun Jeong thanks both of them, when suddenly the grandpa comes and apologizes to him. The grandpa tells Jun Jeong that the North Guild has threatened him that they will kill his granddaughter if he doesn't testify against Jun Jeong. Seong-gu assures the grandpa that he will not let those guys do anything to him and his family. After the grandpa's leaves, Jun Jeong and Seong-gu notice Choi Yong-sung walking towards them while trying to emit his magic power. Choi Yong-sung comes forward and introduces himself to Seong-gu. Seong-gu introduces himself and also emits his magic power while warning Choi Yong-sung to stay away from him and Jun Jeong. Choi Yong-sung gets scared and pulls back his hand and notices that his magic was broken. Seong-gu ridicules him as he tells him that he doesn't even consider him worthy of an enemy, and warns him to watch his behavior unless he wants to die. The following day, Soo-young and Jun Jeong are talking about Grandpa's incident while sitting in a cafe. Soo-young is furious that the 2 men were released just with a fine. Jun Jeong remembers that in the future there was no such thing as hunters being prosecuted. He brushes off the thought and asks Su-young about Grandpa. Su-young tells him that though falsely testifying against a hunter is a serious crime, but since Jun-jeong was lenient, the North Army Guild accepted their wrongdoings, and so Grandpa got off with just a lecture. Jun-jeong realizes that Seong-gu might have pulled some strings and proceeds to ask about the North Army Guild's movements. Su-young tells him that they have been silent, but Jun-jeong doesn't trust this guild and asks Su-young to keep an eye on them. But Jun-jeong isn't going to let off Choi Yong-sung so easily and makes it one of his motives to pay him back. A few days later, Jun-jeong meets with Seong-gu and his team in front of a dungeon gate since he had asked for Seong-gu's help to raid this dungeon. While they are chatting, two hunters of Seong-gu's team come forward to greet Jun-jeong. Seong-gu introduces them as Choi Chia-leong and Lee Han-sung, who rescued Jun-jeong back them. After the greetings, Jun-jeong looks around to see no familiar names or faces from the future. He finds it natural as Heimdall aka Seong-gu and the League Guild were wiped from history along with the Demon King. Soon everyone starts entering the C-rank gate. Meanwhile, in the office of the North Army Guild, Choi Yong-sung the Guild Master, Choi Yeon-soo, and Jeong In-ching the Vice Guild Masters are arguing about the matter that took place a few days ago. Choi Yeon-soo is not happy that Choi Yong-sung is just letting go of the matter and staying quiet, which is causing hindrance in the expansion of their guild. While Jeong In-ching thinks that rather than worrying about the expansion they should keep their guild members in line and not let this happen again. But Choi Yeon-soo believes that normal people are just insects that extend their life by latching onto hunters, and hunters shouldn't have to bow their heads and apologize to such lowly shits. Jeong In-ching gets triggered and is about to fight with Choi Yeon-soo, but Choi Yong-sung stops them and sides with Yeon-soo and says that he wants Jun-jeong to pay the price for interfering with them. Jeong In-ching isn't happy with Choi Yong-sung's words but is shocked when he hears that even that man is curious about Jun-jeong, and so that mysterious man is going to prepare the stage for them soon. On the other side, in the dungeon, Seong-gu's team and Jun-jeong move forward after a female hunter clears the trap. Suddenly, out of nowhere, arrows start charging at the group, but Hae block it with their magic powers. Jun-jeong is amazed by their skills as he gets to learn and watch hunters in action. As Seong-gu kills a few monsters in one go, Jun-jeong finds it incredible and praises him. But Seong-gu knows that Jun-jeong asked for his help because he wanted to see his guild in action and asks Jun-jeong to speak honestly. Jun-jeong tells Seong-gu that his skills are incredible even though he didn't use his true strength. Suddenly, a hunter from the team asks Jun-jeong to show his super rookie skills. Seong-gu also agrees with his teammate, and so Jun-jeong believes he doesn't need to hide his skills from Seong-gu and steps forward to fight the monsters. While Jun-jeong is fighting the monsters, the League Guild members are amazed at the fact that he can activate his skills without saying the name out loud. But Seong-gu knows that what Jun-jeong has is not a skill but an authority. After the fight, the Fall of Heaven informs Jun-jeong that he has cleared the Goblin Mage dungeon and he is sponsored again, which makes his stats increase slightly. When everyone is outside the dungeon, the League Guild members praise Jun-jeong and one of them asks Seong-gu as to why hasn't he recruited Jun-jeong yet. Seong-gu reminds Jun-jeong that the offer to let him join the guild still stands and it would be better if he joins their guild to avoid any further problems from the North Army Guild. He knows that the North Army Guild will soon come after Jun-jeong and offers him to be the Vice Guild Master to protect him. Jun-jeong is surprised at Seong-gu's offer, but he sadly declines the offer. Seong-gu tells him to not be apologetic as he understands that Jun-jeong's eyes are already staring at something much bigger and farther away. Suddenly, Jun-jeong's phone rings. He checks to see that the association has broadcasted a request for 100 individual hunters outside the North Army Guild to help with the gate conquest. Jun-jeong realizes that Choi Yong-sung manipulated the association for this hunter mobilization order just so he can start with his plan to get back at Jun-jeong. Meanwhile, in the North Army Guild's building, Jeong In-ching is worried about his friendship with Choi Yeon-soo and Choi Yong-sung. Everything changed after they met a man. According to Jeong In-ching, despite Choi Yeon-soo's aggressive nature, this warm-hearted person stopped seeing ordinary people as humans one day. Whereas the guild master Choi Yong-sung considered everyone else inferior to himself, whether they were hunters or not. They are now trying to murder a single hunter, just because he stood up against the North Army Guild's unreasonable actions. Jeong In-ching believed that the North Army Guild is beyond saving and is in shambles. Just when he thinks that he couldn't just abandon those two, he receives a text from Jun-jeong wanting to meet him and he wonders whether he should choose friendship or justice. When he meets with Jun-jeong, he is surprised to know that he came to confront him on his own. Jun-jeong tries to assure him that there is no trap. But Jiang Incheng gets straight to the point and requests Jun Jiang to refuse the association's mobilization notice, and warns him about the dangers he may face once he crosses paths with Choi Yong-sum. He further goes on to tell him that hunters are known to be violent and cruel people, especially his guild master Choi Yong-sung, who isn't a virtuous man. To this, Jun Jiang questions him if whether he is trying to say that the North Army Guild is a chaos guild. He remembers the book's words where it was written that there also exist evil beings amongst the sponsors. The missions those sponsors assign usually include murder or worse acts such as large-scale slaughter. Guilds created by hunters who are sponsored by such evil beings are called a chaos guild. Jiang Incheng gets furious at his words and denies his allegations while trying to subdue him with his power. But Jun Jiang stands up to him and tells him that Jiang Incheng knows that his guild has been rotten since birth after meeting that man. Jiang Incheng is shocked at his words and leaves the area without putting up any further fight. He is amazed at how Jun Jiang was able to rival in a rank hunter like him and also knew about that man. This piqued his curiosity to know more about Jun Jiang. Jiang Incheng, also known as Dragon Slayer or Siegfried. Among those, the most infamous name is Immortal Siegfried. He killed the Demon King's avatar as well as the infamous monster, the Bone Dragon, and received an unprecedented, fraudulent authority from sponsors, immortality. In the battle against the Demon King in the future, he was a friend who was ordered by Choi Yong-sum, the tragic hero who was killed by Choi Yonsu. And so, no matter what, Jun Jiang wants him to his side. The next day, Jun Jiang clears the land of the dead dungeon, but his metal weapons aren't lasting now that rule over fire's level has risen. And so, before the hunter mobilization order, he decides to find a new weapon. Soon after, he enters a weaponry shop where he meets with Brock Aka Park Yi-hyun. Jun Jiang never thought that he could meet Yi-hyun in person. Yi-hyun is one of the people who became a dwarf as they became a hunter, and he is the person who will become the best blacksmith in the future, the hero of blacksmiths. 4 hours later, Yi-hyun asks Jun Jiang about his identity and gets to know that Jun Jiang came to request the production of a weapon. Jun Jiang further asks if he uses the workshop by himself. Yi-hyun finds it weird that not only he came looking for an unnamed blacksmith and requested a piece of equipment, but also is asking about the workshop. Jun Jiang points at a slightly different hammer that caught his eye to explain himself. Yi-hyun appreciates his keen eyes and tells him that there is indeed one more guy who uses this workshop, but there's no point talking about him, and asks about how Jun Jiang came to even find him. As Jun Jiang tells Yi-hyun that a sponsor told him to come to this workshop, Yi-hyun was surprised how a sponsor was directly intervening. Jun Jiang knew that Yi-hyun had no choice but to trust him because he is also feeling a direct intervention from his sponsor. In the Demon King's book, Park Yi-hyun, who had made the Demon King's weapon, got his relationship estranged with the Demon King due to the 12 heroes, eventually making weapons only for the 12 heroes. In his book, Demon King also said that, if Park Yi-hyun had helped him till the end, the history would have changed. Though Yi-hyun was able to trust Jun Jiang, he couldn't help Jun Jiang because he is not satisfied with his fire. But Jun Jiang knows what to do and shows Yi-hyun his ability to rule over the fire, and tells Yi-hyun that he can help with the fire while Yi-hyun makes the weapon. 1 week later, Yi-hyun creates a huge muspel spear with a unique rank, and as it is exposed to more fire, this weapon will grow. Though Yi-hyun says that due to his lack of abilities, he could make only a spear and not a shield, Jun Jiang is quite impressed with the spear and believes he doesn't need any other weapon if he has this spear. But Yi-hyun reminds him that the spear is still incomplete because right now, he doesn't have that guy who can help, and compared to the flames that Jun Jiang made, a low-quality weapon was created. Yi-hyun then tells him to come by once in a while to strengthen his weapon. Jun Jiang tells him that he looks forward to working with Yi-hyun and proceeds to bow. But as he bows, Yi-hyun notices the soul-collecting skeleton on Jun Jiang's arm and warns him that his sponsor isn't normal either. Yi-hyun doesn't know what it is specifically, but he tells Jun Jiang that he is getting a bad feeling about the bracelet. Jun Jiang had vaguely suspected this, but his suspicions were confirmed after listening to Yi-hyun's words. So that is it for this video. Guys, hope you enjoyed it. So if you like the video, then hit that like button and leave a comment for the next part. Most important, subscribe and press the bell icon for notification. I will meet you in the new video. Till then, bye.